Hi, and welcome to Tuesday Town Halls. If you're expecting Michael Charbon, it could either be a pleasant surprise or a disappointment. So let me introduce myself, since normally I'm behind the cameras. My name is Don McLeod. I'm president and founder of Brampton Focus, which runs Brampton Voters. Next to me is Fazal Khan. He runs our Neighborhood Watch program and is an integral part of Brampton Focus. So one of the reasons that we're actually coming to you today to talk about what's going on behind the scenes. We were going to be actually doing a show on transit today, but apparently we were contacted by the City Hall. We asked for the Director of Transit to come on and talk about transit, cycling, gridlock in the city, which is a major problem for a lot of people, and it actually impacts economic development along with a whole bunch of other things. We wanted to talk to them about the transit overview. We wanted to talk about the BRT, the LRT, any kind of situation. We did have someone, Kevin Montgomery from Fight Gridlock, I think he's with.
Yep.
He was going to come on and talk about cycling. He's the quintessential Brampton cyclist. He doesn't own a car, he cycles. He was more than willing to come on, but apparently city staff have decided, and this is an internal decision that has been made by CAO Harry Schlang, not for any of the staff to comment on anything in regards to whether it be a transit plan, whether it be cultural, the cultural master plan, or any plans at all that the city has actually put on their website or it's public knowledge. So they don't want to talk to anyone or anything apparently until after the election. They cited the Municipal Elections Act, but I cannot find anything in the Municipal Election Act that prohibits city staff from talking about plans that are already on their website and have already been published and passed by council. So from what I understand, and if someone can correct me with the Elections Act, I'd be more than happy to back my statement.
Well, you know, Don, I think part of the problem is there's no media in Brampton. There's limited media, and so the city's just not accustomed to having to be transparent about what it is they do. That's the only reason I can kind of explain why city staff is not really interested in. I guess they're interested, but they're coming up with reasons not to speak with residents.
Well, that could very possibly be, but I mean, the thing is, so this cone of silence has descended over City Hall. They don't want to talk about anything, and they don't want staff to talk about anything till after the election, October 22nd. That's their decision, whether it's right or wrong. I'm sure you're going to have people saying it's right and other people saying it's wrong. We just have to live.
It's wrong.
Okay. It's wrong. We just have to live with that decision. So we're going to continue carrying on our Town Hall Tuesdays, but you will not see any staff involved. We did get Bob Darling from Economic Development to talk about economic development in one of our segments. So going forward, we're just going to have to talk to people that are not connected with city staff. So that's why I'm in front of the camera for this.
You sound a little bit angry, Don.
Am I normally angry, or?
I don't know. It's frustration, I think you're hearing.
I think it's frustration because, you know, the reason that we're doing these town halls is it's an election year. It's a municipal election year. There's a lot of issues on the table, and all these issues are interconnected. Stuff like economic development, transit, crime, healthcare, homelessness, and poverty. These are issues that you should be asking your candidate when they come to the door. You know, a lot of people say, well, you know, we don't want to have impeachment, or we don't want to have a situation or a system where we can impeach our councillors if they don't do something. You have the opportunity once every 4 years to basically make your vote count. So these are issues that you should be knowing what is behind these issues and how they're going to implement you on a daily basis. City Council basically doesn't make up an economic master plan. They don't make up a cultural master plan. They don't make a transit plan. Staff does this. Staff goes to outside consultants or does their internal. They make up this great big monster binder, and then council either approves or disapproves the budget for it. So it's staff that basically you should be, or we should be, having on here to talk about their plan. But as I said before, the cone of silence has descended and we won't get any answers.
But that said, you know, I'm one of the harshest critics of our economic development team at the city, and they were kind enough to be on one of our previous town halls.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So, you know, we appreciate that because a lot of time and effort were spent on the economic development master plan. It would have been great to have other staff members on for all the various other things that the city is involved with.
Well, we did, you know, for our crime segment, we did ask the Peel Regional Police to have someone, an upper staff or brass, And even though we gave them 10 days to actually come up with someone, apparently no one from the chief all the way down to a superintendent was not available, which I find a little bit strange. But you know, the Peel representation, the Peel Police Association rep, Adrian Woolley, was good enough to come out and talk. And so were members of the crime team.
Yeah, and we did have a lot of police officers show up, various responsible for various parts of policing. So I don't want to necessarily be critical on the chief herself, but that's the same thing we're seeing with all of the various directors outside of the city. So we've tried to have town halls with the director of education at the Peel District School Board. With who else?
Well, we asked, like I gave William Osler 10 days again when we were talking about healthcare. I mean, healthcare is a critical situation in Brampton. We have 1 bed per 1,000 people. I know that, we asked them to have represent someone from this vast, organization to come on and talk about healthcare in this situation. And apparently no one was available.
Yeah,
I would have taken a guy that swept the floors.
Yeah,
right?
well, absolutely.
I don't care. Right. So
yeah, and that was the surprising one, because as you know, William Osler's constantly doing fundraising for equipment and things at the hospital, and so if we asked him to come on,
well, we've raised over $13,000 Brampton Focus 2 softball games, and they were
and various community groups are raising hundreds of thousands.
Right.
Many individuals have given hundreds of thousands of dollars. So to get a high-level person from William Osler to come and talk about what's going on at the hospital, talk about issues going on in the public health system, would have been great. Instead, we did get a good guest who was very critical of the Ontario Medical Association. So if you missed that episode, I would definitely watch it. So we're trying, as a small community media group in Brampton, to try to raise the issues. We're in a unique situation because we're not Toronto, so we don't have multiple TV stations, multiple newspapers, multiple radio stations, but we are the 9th largest city in Canada. And so the opportunity is for a media group like us to start covering it. And there's ample room for other media groups. In the city we have
absolutely.
The Bramptonist in Brampton, the Brampton Guardian, and us. Is there anybody else I missed?
Well, I'm sure there's a few. I mean, Fight Gridlock.
There are also the ethnic,
one. I mean, those are the ethnic
groups
media as well. But the thing is, I mean, we're expecting answers from our officials that basically, even William Osler, I mean, they are providing health care in this city, right, for 600,000 residents, and there's going to be another 200 and something thousand over the next 10 or 15 or 20 years. We have one hospital. The other we have at the Peel Memorial is basically a walk-in clinic. When is phase 2 starting? When phase 2 opens up, that's only give us 200 more beds. So you have 600 now, just over 600, plus another 200. For our population, the average is 2.7 beds per person. We should have 1,300. So even when the second phase of that hospital opens, which God knows it could be 5-10 years from now, we're still going to be underfunded, and our population is
those
increased.
are questions we need to ask our mayoral candidates. We should have been asking our provincial MPs who just got elected. There's no champion that we're seeing of these hospitals, right? There's announcements, but people are not implementing anything, right?
And that's your tax dollars. I mean, we pay the levy for every tax or property owner. We pay the levy on our tax bill for how many years? And as a resident of Brampton, we are responsible for 100% of the cost to actually fit, all the what do they call that? Putting all the equipment and everything else, right? So we're responsible for 100% of those equipment costs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean,
which by the way, I think in the past we weren't. So,
that was provincial government.
For cities like Mississauga that have multiple health hospitals, or Hamilton, who paid for those hospitals, right? And now we need hospitals. The municipal government has to, get residents to pay on top of what little the provincial government is not providing now. So is it fair? I don't think it's fair.
No, but at the same time, I mean, the mayor says we have land put aside for the third hospital. Great. Even if we get the second hospital open and 200 more beds, it's still not up to the average.
And you can't build a hospital overnight.
Well, no, but what are we going to do? Camp out at the third location and wait for the hospital to open? I mean, you have hallway medicine right now, right? You have people in the hallways and can't get proper care. So these are situations that we tried to, I think it was disingenuous of William Osler not to send anybody. So what we're trying to accomplish with these town halls, and I'll reiterate why we're doing them. Everything is connected. We're getting a university in 2022. apparently Ryerson is going to be up and running in
Are you sure we're getting university?
Well, theoretically, it's
okay.
2022. Let's say it happens, right? So I'm a parent and I want to send my kid to Brampton University, Ryerson University. What do I look at? I look like something like crime statistics. And recently we've had a spike in crime. Robberies, burglaries, murders,
attempted murders, stabbings.
Okay, enough.
Lots of traffic accidents.
So if I'm a parent, I'm taking a look at this. I say I want to go to Brampton University at Ryerson, and all of a sudden, well, the crime is getting out of control there. Okay, that's a negative. Then I take a look at the transit situation. Do I have an effective transit to get Johnny from point A to point B? Can he get there? Do they have dedicated bus lanes so that during high peak hours it takes half an hour to get across the city instead of 2.5 hours? I mean, these are situations that play into it. So, when Johnny graduates, is there going to be enough economic development in the city itself to get a job?
That's the big one, right? That's the big one that I don't see any action on is the jobs part. And that's something residents. What's the stats? How many people leave Brampton every day to go for a job?
Our activity rate is 35%. For those who don't understand activity rate, it means the amount of people leaving the city going to other places to work, which a majority of Bramptons do that, right? They leave this city to go to work in either Toronto, Mississauga, Oakville, or outside the city. So this is not good because obviously it plays into the transit thing again, right? So there's gridlock because people are moving. If you've got businesses basically centered in the city and you have an opportunity to get from point A to point B quickly and efficiently, then you could take your bike to work. You could take transit to work. Instead, people are using,
I'm not sure I'd take my bike to work quite yet, Don.
Not yet?
No.
Okay. Well,
Kevin Montgomery might, but there's no way.
You need to lose a few pounds anyway. It could do you good. But anyway, so these are the situations that we're talking about. So, and then economic development ties into stuff like, healthcare as well. So if I'm taking a look at if I'm a business, let's say I'm a business and I'm a big corporation, and I want to relocate because we have all these development lands or economic development lands that are all situated, they're locked up, we're not going to change them to housing. Say I want to have a business come into to Brampton. What do I look for? I look for cultural, a lot of bars, restaurants for my employees. I look at a highly educated workforce, which Brampton has, but I look at transit options. How can I get my workers from point A to point B? I don't want somebody calling in sick every day or late every day because the transit's no good, or because there's too much gridlock, or there's not enough things going on in the city. So all these are connected. If there's no healthcare here that's good enough or up to standard, I'm taking a look at another town which got 3 or 4 hospitals.
Right. So that's one of the reasons we're having all these town halls to talk about these topics. We can go on and on, but it's not Don and I that are making the decisions. It's the community leaders. So it's election time. So I definitely recommend that as residents, as voters, as you ask anybody that shows up at your door, if anybody shows up at your door, all these kind of issues. What are they doing for jobs? What are they doing for healthcare? What are they doing to reduce crime? And a lot of people will say, a lot of the new candidates will say, yes, crime is my, one of my number one issues. Well, what are you going to do about it? We all know crime is an issue. It's an issue all over the GTA, right? It's not specific to Brampton. There might be peaks in Brampton, but as a city, what can we do about it? Rather than blame somebody else, rather than blame the current council. So, there's lots that you should be asking.
I don't want to hear,
candidates.
A solution to the problem is not to send thoughts and prayers to the victims and their families. That accomplishes nothing. Hiring more police officers doesn't accomplish anything but hiring more police officers.
Not that we could use more police officers, but we have to be more efficient
multi-dimensional, there's different layers that are combined in the situation. And again, it ties into economic development. There's more jobs for these people. Like we did a show, 2 shows a year ago. We did one on the increasing amount of gang activity in Brampton. There's at least 100 gangs in Brampton with over 1,000 members. We did a show on that a year ago, and we were talking to the chief and one of the gang detectives, and he was saying that a lot of the gangs in Toronto and south of the border are actually influxing into suburbs where it's easier to actually do their drugs, set up meth labs and do that. The other one we did was on human trafficking, and Peel is basically the human traffic center. This was over a year ago, and I know that the politicians, right, whether they be federal, provincial, or municipal, saw both those shows, And what did they do then? Were they
Nothing.
proactive?
They did nothing.
Did they say, oh, maybe we should do something now? Maybe we should actually nip this in the bud? They did nothing. Now it's coming home to roost, and all they can send is thoughts and prayers. That's not good enough. There's got to be a concerted effort, and this is part of the reason why when candidates come to your door, you want to see some hard, what are you going to do, right? This is part and parcel of why we're doing this, and it's these town halls. We want the people involved to be able to give a little bit more than the platitudes that you hear on a regular election time. Because like I said, you only have one shot every 4 years, right? This is your shot. This is the time from now till October 22nd. It's like you take your tax bill. It's an investment. Everyone gets a tax bill who owns property, but that's an investment. I see people at the grocery store checking the receipt. Oh, did I get charged for a 5-cent bag? Or did I get that special deal on the strawberries? Or they check their RSPs and make sure their investment is going up, not down. This tax bill is your investment. This is investing in a city, right? Most of your tax money goes towards wages and staff, right? Salaries and benefits and wages for staff. So, I mean, that's a big part and parcel of your tax bill. So, you know, and
nobody's paying attention to it, right?
Well, that's
because
why we're doing it.
You kind of have to pay it.
I mean, you're checking for your 5-cent bag, but are you checking what you're getting on your rate of return for your
this is the time.
investment?
This is the time to do something about it, right? You ask your councillors what they're going to do about your tax bill. You know, if somebody says they're going to reduce it, I'd question it, but at least hold it to the rate of inflation. You know, I can't even figure out. We've been tracking the budget for the last little while. I can't figure out how much our tax bill has gone up, right? Because the city and the region, they blend it together with the school, and at the end of the day, our taxes have gone up, and the city will claim it hasn't gone up as much as it has, but it has, right? If you just look at the city portion of your property taxes, you know, it's gone up at least 15, if not more than 20% cumulative. So you pay, let's say, a 4% last year, and let's say it goes up 3% this year. That's 3% on top of the 4% increase. So, and where's that money going?
And it's, you know, it's 2 to 3 times the rate of inflation, right? Every year it's at least 2 to 3 times the rate of inflation. So again, you know, I hear in council sometimes councillors talking and asking, whether it be a group coming up and asking for funds, what the return on investment is. What's the return on the city's investment? They keep asking that.
Well, anybody who gets a grant from the city, you've got to do all this paperwork just to get the grant, and then you got to justify it after you get the grant.
So they're asking, what's the return on investment? Well, here's a question to all the councillors and the mayor. What's my return on investment? Is my return on investment getting the best bang for the buck? That's what you should be asking, because your money goes directly into that. I don't know how many people just sign off, send their checks, and then they don't know.
Or there's a lot of people who have a hard time paying that, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, that's the other
you know, we've got a lot of readers on our Brampton Focus Facebook group who complain about the city's tactics in getting that money back, and it's you know, I don't know exactly what they do, but you know, there are people hurting because of property taxes.
Well, the other thing is property taxes are only going to go up. I mean, we have a low activity rate, so it ties again into economic development. If you don't have enough businesses to offset the residential tax rate, it's only going to be going up. If you don't have businesses are essential to building a city and making sure that you have enough tax dollars to cover the residential. Right now, it's, I think, 70% of the money that they generate or comes in is coming from property tax owners, and only 20-something% from business. If you have an increase of 50% and then it cuts down, you'll see a decrease in those property taxes. As long as
a decrease in the share of residential property taxes.
Exactly.
I don't think we're ever going to see a decrease. Well, have you ever seen a decrease in property taxes?
No,
ever?
Ever.
How old are you, Don?
I've been here since 1991, right? In this house. I've never seen one, right? So these are situations that tie into the bigger picture. We're the 9th largest city, only population-wise. We're not first in economic development. We're not first in healthcare. We're not first in cultural plans. We're not first in this. There's a whole bunch of things that we're lacking.
But you know what we are first in, though, I think, is our youth and our diversity, and those are things we're not utilizing because. You know, kids, what do? Or students, they go off to study somewhere else, and they go off to other opportunities after that, right?
Well, how many students do we have through the federal grant program this year that are going to Western, Guelph, U of T? You know, they're not going here, they're going somewhere else, and if they take a look at that, I guess the end result is if they see job opportunities in those areas, they're going to be going outside the city for those job opportunities.
Of course.
So, I mean, I would too, right? You're looking at the best for for your future and everything else. You don't want to stay into a city if there's no opportunities. And opening gas stations is not economic development.
And allocating land for employment is not economic development. You've got to bring the companies here. You've got to help small businesses grow into larger businesses.
Right.
So and we don't see any of that happening, right? There's there's millions of dollars being spent on economic development within the city. What's the return on that?
Well, like Tina Larson said when we had the economic development, she said one of the big things was, let's see the execution, right? So like any business owner, if you own a business, you have a plan, and if that plan doesn't get to from your first 6 months or 1 year, then you switch pretty quick, because basically it's your bottom line being affected. The thing is with the city gets money anyway. If it fails in a year now, they can just say, well, we're going to go in direction, and well, too bad. I guess we'll
and that's the risk of your election, right? You get a new set of councillors, plans change, right? We just spent 4 years developing all sorts of plans. What's going to happen with the new council? Are these plans continuing? Are they on a shelf somewhere? Like, what's happening with these plans? We spent a lot of money on these plans.
Yeah, we did. We spent over, what was it, $500,000 on Larry Beasley to talk about how to transform the city.
From my perspective, that wasn't even a plan. That was a vision.
That was a vision.
With pretty pictures.
Sorry, it wasn't a plan. It was a vision, correct. Right? Yeah. And I think one councillor said it was a fairy tale vision, right? So it's nice to have a vision. I mean, I got a vision of winning the lotto, what I would do with the money, but what's the the reality is,
I know how you do that. You got to spend a lot of money.
Well, the reality is like you got 1 in a billion chance, right? So I mean, these are situations that as a voter, we're trying to give you information, and it's disingenuous for people that are in those positions that make these decisions to say to us, sorry, we're not going to send anybody to talk about these. You're not talking to us about these situations. You're talking about the taxpayers of this city.
But it's also an opportunity to explain to residents what's going on, what's happening with their tax money.
We're giving them the platform, but apparently they don't want the platform.
Well, they'll spend money on Facebook ads, on consultants to talk to a few thousand people for these plans. But when it comes time to talking to the 600,000 plus residents in the city, they're nowhere to be found. I just don't find that acceptable. But we've rambled a little bit. But there's, well, you have. I don't know about me. So there's lots of stuff we're doing to help residents kind of engage more, and that's our whole vision of Brampton Focus, is to help residents engage. Because once you do, then people become more accountable. So there's a number of things that you should be looking forward to. Did you want to announce the big thing we're working on?
No, we'll have to wait and see what's going on. Right.
So we were hoping to announce something today.
Yeah, but we can't. We have to wait for the city to let us know.
We're waiting on the city. And
so that's another. But our town halls will continue on August the 14th, which is going to be talking about homelessness, poverty, and
who's our
shelters.
Guests for that?
We're going to have Rod Rice. Rod Rice is in charge. Well, he's head of Rice Development, which is one of the oldest family developers in Brampton. He's also director of Regeneration. He sits on the board.
Regeneration is your organization that does a lot of work with homeless people,
right,
and food banks and things like that.
Ted Brown, Father Ted Brown heads Regeneration. He's been involved in that on a regular basis. And then we also have Richard Antonio, who is the chair or the president of the Peel Poverty Action Group. He's going to be joining us as well, talking about the situation in Brampton, about poverty, homelessness, and the new shelter.
So why should you care about poverty, right? So if you're watching this, you probably have a good internet connection at home, you have a laptop or a computer you're watching, you're probably doing a little bit better than somebody who's going to a food bank. So why should you watch that? Why should they watch that, Don?
Well, you explain. Why should they watch it?
Well, because it affects us all, right? It's not nice going downtown and seeing, people with all sorts of issues. The big one, the result of it being that they don't have some place to live, they don't have proper nutrition. At the end of the day, society has to look after these people. Wouldn't it be better to help them before they even get in that situation?
Well, the other thing is affordable housing is going to be covered as well. And affordable housing is one of those situations that, again, ties back into something like the university. If I'm a university student and I'm coming to the city, obviously they're not going to live on campus because it's not an on-campus situation. But if I want to come here from another country and I want to actually stay, I have to get what? Now it's a basement apartment. There is no affordable housing. So I'm looking at that situation that, a lot of the students, I guess, at Sheridan College were complaining about, although Sheridan College said it wasn't any international students, but...
Well, students in general are the ones living in a lot of these basements, and they're being crowded, and what's being done about that, right? And that's why there's a lot of blame there, right? Because neighbors beside them are saying, well, how come they don't have to pay more property taxes because they got so many people living there? There's a safety issue, a fire code issue, but there's also it's not right to have 10, 20 people living in a house, right? The houses weren't designed for that. Our infrastructure wasn't designed for that. And that's all because properties are becoming much more expensive to purchase, much more expensive to rent. Yes, we're in a big city, but these are big city problems that we have to address. We can't just let them slide as we have.
Well, it's also, if you want more people, you're going to have 200,000 more people coming to Brampton within the next 15 to 20 years.
Yeah, so we're going to be larger than Mississauga.
Exactly. So you're not taking any more land and transferring it from the employment lands over to residential.
Right.
So you've got to make an investment in either more apartment buildings, and you have to talk. You cannot develop a city without builders. Cities don't develop themselves. You have to have builders involved in the conversation as well. A lot of people take a look at developers and say, developers are only trying to make a buck. Yes, absolutely. If I was a developer, I would be trying to make a buck too. But the city can make situations easier or work with the developers to include housing or stores or retail in the bottom parts. They have to work with developers because the city doesn't build housing. The province doesn't build housing because we're about 20 years behind in affordable housing. So you need to work with developers. They're not, they're not the total enemy. To build a city takes more than just one thing. So we're going to be covering those topics as well. Going forward, we're going to be doing a different format coming up to probably October. We're going to be talking more and more on a one-to-one. And other than that, if I know Neighborhood Watch is launching, you might want to talk about Neighborhood Watch to close out.
Yeah, so this summer, one of the big projects we're doing is the second version of our Neighborhood Watch newspaper. So if you were a Neighborhood Watch member, you're going to be getting this at your door, and inside you're going to get Know Your Neighbors, a new version of the Know Your Neighbors a pamphlet, but cards, so that you can actually put down the contact information for your neighbors. That is probably the most important aspect of Neighborhood Watch, is getting to know not just the faces of your neighborhood, of your neighbors, because we all know that, but what their first name is and how to contact them if you see something that is out of the ordinary. And if you're not on Neighborhood Watch, it's easy to do. Just go to nwbrampton.ca, log in, or sign in, and then you're going to get a series of videos to learn about the program, and then we're going to start communicating with you in terms of any incidents going on in your neighborhood. And if you have an existing watch community where you live, we'll let you know when they're going to be meeting. So, it's a fantastic program. It's our contribution to crime prevention in the city to make our neighborhoods more vibrant. And we also did get support from the city through the Community Grants Fund for that newspaper. So I want to give kudos to the city for supporting this initiative of ours. So that should be distributed by the end of August. That's one of the projects our students are working on. So yeah, we're really looking forward to seeing how many of you take the initiative and sign up for the program. We already have over 1,500 homes, which represents probably about over 5,000 residents. They all love it. They all give us great feedback on the videos. So, there's no reason why you shouldn't be doing that. And it's more eyes and ears for reporting anything that's going on in your neighborhood to the police. And that's what they want, you to report these incidents, not just ignore them or videotape them.
Okay, so great, so perfect. So next Tuesday, August the 14th, you're going to see Michael Charbon sitting back in his normal spot. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's the way it's going to happen.
And it won't be in this spot, right, Don?
No, it won't be in this spot.
This spot is known to the Brampton Focus community as the tree. So next time you see us in the community, ask us about the tree.
And if you want more information on Brampton Focus, you can go to bramptonfocus.ca. You can send us an email. If you've got topics or situations or something that you want to talk about or think of make a good story, contact us and we'll get in touch with you. Otherwise, we will see you next Tuesday. Thank you very much and have a great night.
Bye-bye.